Evening, everyone. Guys, am I audible? Can you all hear me? Yeah, thank you. And as I said in the last session, today we will first start with uh, understanding how we can set up our lab environment, how do we work with our virtual missions, and then we'll proceed with our password cracking techniques and all, right? And before we do that, you all have a VMware workstation, right? So guys, have you all have this VMware workstation? Okay, so if you all have VMware workstation, then it will be easy. In case if you do not have VMware workstation, then I would say try to download and install VMware workstation because that's required for our lab practicals. So let me share my screen. Okay, Shahir, if you do not have VMware workstation, then try to download and install VMware workstation, right? So you can go with VMware workstation 16 Pro, right? As of now, workstation 17, it has some issues, right? So I don't recommend going with workstation 17, go with workstation 16. So you can download and install it. And as you all know, VMware Workstation is a licensed tool, right? So you will need a serial key, right, for the workstation application to function properly. If not, it will only give you 30 days of trial version, right? So you can register the workstation serial key, right? So workstation 16 can be registered. I have given you some link. You can check that in the chat. So all the virtual machine files that I have shared, right, will be in compressed format. So I have compressed them using WinRAR. So they will all have extension .rar. Have you used this software, WinRAR? So in case if someone has not used it, or if this is the first time you are coming across this file extension .rar, right? You can download and install this software WinRAR. So it is available for both 32-bit platform as well as 64-bit platform, right? So based on what operating system you have, you can install it. But when I say VMware Workstation, because that's another requirement, VMware Workstation will work only on 64-bit operating systems, right? So VMware Workstation will not work on 32-bit versions, right? Uh, so make sure that on your computer you have 64-bit of Windows operating system, right? Workstation will not work with 32-bit. So you can download and install WinRAR, using which you will be able to uh, uncompress or you can unzip, right? All the files. All you need to do is just right click and say extract to whatever the works, whatever the VMware virtual machine name you have, right? So just try to extract all the contents. Now, once you extract all the contents, you can open the folder, right? Now, let's say you are trying to extract cybersec 11 rar file. It will create a folder cybersec 11 and all the files will be listed there, right? In cybersec 11. Now on this, you have to search for a file with the extension .vmx, right? You'll have to search for a file with the extension .vmx, right? So this vmx is the virtual machines configuration file, right? So this is a virtual machines configuration file. So you'll have to find this particular file with the extension as .vmx. So let me show you how exactly you'll be able to get it. So let me share my screen. Okay, so you're all able to view my Windows Explorer, right? Guys, can you see my Windows Explorer? Yeah, okay. So in Windows Explorer, as I said, by default, once you extract all the contents, right, you will see many files created there, but you will not be seeing the file extensions by default, right? So this is how you will be seeing multiple files, right? You'll see multiple files with the name, say cybersec 11, cybersec 11 scoreboard, cybersec 11 cl1, cl2, and all this. So multiple files you'll be seeing there, right? So from all these files, as I said, you have to look for a file with the extension .vmx. So for this, what you do is enable the file extensions on your Windows Explorer, right? So you can find it in the folder properties, right? You can find it in the folder properties, right? So what you do is you can go to the folder properties based on whether you are using Windows 10 or 11, right? That option, the folder properties option might be different. So you can check that. So I say options, folder options. So in folder options, you have to enable a specific option to show all the file extensions. Okay. So is it visible now? Nagaraj, unfortunately, even if I try to zoom it on my computer, right? Uh, WebEx, for some unknown weird reason, it's not considering that zoom, right? Okay, so in the folder option settings, you will see an option called hide extensions for known file types. Hide extensions for known file types. That's the option you see on folder options. So there's a checkbox. You will have to uncheck that. Okay, so you'll have to uncheck the option hide extensions for known file types. You can say okay. So once you do that, you will start seeing file extensions for all the files, right? So for all the files, you'll start seeing the extension names. So there, as you see here, you'll see a file with the file extension as .vmx. You'll see a file with the extension as .vmx. All you need to do is right click and say open with VMware Workstation, right? All you need is right click and say open with VMware Workstation, or you can just double click if you have already installed VMware Workstation on the system, right? So if VMware Workstation is already installed, you can double click the .vmx file, or you can right click and say open with VMware Workstation. Okay, so first step, extract the contents of the RAR file. If your Windows Explorer is not showing you the file extensions, try to check the folder options, right? Enable the file extensions option, right? So once the file extensions are enabled, you will be able to see the file with extension .vmx. So I'm also putting it here in the chat, .vmx. This is the VMware configuration file, right? So this is a configuration file for that specific VM, right? So all you need to do is double click on that particular file, right? Double click on the .vmx file. It will open your virtual machine in the VMware Workstation application. So is it clear so far? Okay, so once you try to, Mr. Bright, where exactly did you miss the thing? Okay, so you can get VMware Workstation later on. So try to understand the procedure. Okay, so don't worry about VMware Workstation. You can download it later on also. Okay, so now, as I said, once you download, it will open the VMware machine, right? Whatever the virtual machine you are trying to use, it will open it on your VMware Workstation. And for Windows 11 virtual machine that I have shared with you, the virtual machine is encrypted. The Windows 11 virtual machine is encrypted, right? And of course, the encryption keys and all those things are already given in a notepad file, right? In the Google Drive link, what I have shared, right? So you can see what is the encryption key, what is the user ID and password of each virtual machine and all, right? But anyway, the encryption key is cybersec. So when it is asking you to enter the password for this, give the password as cybersec and say continue. So once you give the password, then your virtual machine will be decrypted, right? So only after virtual machine is decrypted, you will be able to see the VM settings and all those things, right? So here, when you look into the VMware and the virtual machine settings on your VMware, right? Uh, the amount of RAM is given as 4 GB. So 4 GB is the amount of RAM that's on your virtual machine, right? Number of processors, it shows you as 2 processors, right? So don't worry, it's not 2 physical processors, right? It's about 2 cores. So here, when you speak about your processor, right? You generally speak about dual core processor, quad core processor, and all, right? So in that way, out of multiple processors which are available on sorry, the out of multiple cores which are available on your processor, right? Two cores will be taken for this particular VM, right? So how can you check how many cores are available on your system's processor? How can we check how many cores are available on our system processor? Task manager. You'll not see that in task manager, right? It tells you what is your processor. Okay. Yeah, in the performance tab, you'll be able to see the logical cores and all, right? So there you will see multiple options in the performance tab, right? Logical cores is one option. Logical processors is the other option. If you are using Windows 11, right? Logical cores and logical processors, right? So there you see how many processors or how many cores, how many processing cores are available, right? So don't worry unless you are using a very old computer, right? You'll be having more than two processing cores. So whatever configuration that you have defined here in the VMware settings will not really have any effect on your performance, right? So that's not going to have any impact. Then hard drive, as you see, I have given it as 80 GB, right? Don't worry, 80 GB of your hard drive space will not be taken by the virtual machine, right? It is only that your virtual machine's hard drive can dynamically expand up to 80 GB in size based on how much data is present on the machine, right? So based on how many files are available on the virtual machine, the virtual machine's hard drive can expand up to 80 GB in size, but it's not really going to occupy all 80 GB right away, right? So don't worry about that. And then coming into the network adapter, so here for network adapter, I have given something as VMnet 0. Now this is something we'll have to understand what is VMnet 0 and all. You're not seeing this? Uh, it's visible? Yeah, okay. So here the memory, this is the amount of RAM that's given to your virtual machine, that is 4 GB as I said. Number of processing cores, two processing cores, right? And then for the hard drive, it is 80 GB, right? So there is a maximum hard drive size that it can expand to 80 GB in size. And then you'll see the network adapter is given as VMnet 0, right? So here now let us understand this network adapter. So have you discussed about network adapters and all earlier? VMware network adapters. Okay. So on our VMs, right, for this ethical hacking part, we are going to use all our virtual machines with network adapter as VMnet 0, right? So we are going to use VMnet 0 as a network adapter for all our virtual machines in the ethical hacking part, right? Now, when you speak about this VMnet 0, right, you can consider this as a simple bridge, right? This is something like a simple bridge, right? Now, I'll also show you what exactly you have to do to configure this VMnet 0, right? So I'll first give you the basic concept so you understand that, then I will show you where you can do the configuration. So on your physical computer, so on your laptop or on your desktop, right, you have a Ethernet card or you have a Wi-Fi card using which you're getting internet. Is that correct? So on the physical computer, maybe laptop or desktop, you'll either be using a Ethernet or maybe you are using Wi-Fi to access internet. So how are you guys getting connected? You are using LAN cable or you are using Wi-Fi? Okay. So, okay, so most of you are saying here that you are using Wi-Fi, right? So even in case if someone is using Ethernet, not an issue, right? So whether you are using Ethernet or you are using Wi-Fi, you will still be able to configure VMnet 0 as per your requirement, right? So what I'll do is I'll show you both, right? So the concept here is we are going to bridge this VMnet 0, right, to our Ethernet adapter. So it will be something like this. So this is your physical mission, right? Where you have Ethernet or you have Wi-Fi connectivity. And then within your mission, you have VMware software. So within VMware, so this VMnet 0 and all, right? They're all components of VMware workstation, right? So you are going to create a network adapter on VMware called VMnet 0, right? You are going to create a network adapter in VMware software called VMnet 0, right? Now this VMnet 0 adapter will be configured in such a way that it is going to connect itself to the existing Ethernet or Wi-Fi adapter on your computer. So you are going to configure VMnet 0 adapter in such a way that it is going to automatically connect itself with Ethernet 0 or sorry, the Ethernet or the Wi-Fi adapter on your physical computer. So whatever internet access that you are going to get on the physical computer, whatever internet access you are getting on the physical computer, your Ethernet or your Wi-Fi, that will be shared with VMnet 0, right? That will be shared with VMnet 0. So is that clear so far? What is VMnet 0 and how you are going to use it? VMnet 0 is a adapter on your VMware software, right? It's a network adapter on the VMware software, a virtual network adapter, which will be connected directly to our existing Ethernet card or Wi-Fi card, right? Based on how our system is connecting to internet, right? Now, once it is configured to directly connect to our Wi-Fi or our Ethernet, then in the VMware software, you're going to create multiple virtual machines. So assume this is your CyberSec 11 virtual machine. So this is your Windows 11 or CyberSec 11 virtual machine. Now on the CyberSec 11 virtual machine, you said your network adapter should be VMnet 0. So whatever the network adapter you have is VMnet 0, right? So as per our earlier discussion, I said VMnet 0 is already attached to our Wi-Fi or Ethernet. VMnet 0 is already attached to our Wi-Fi or Ethernet. And now on my virtual machine, I'm using VMnet 0 as the network adapter. On the virtual machine, I'm using VMnet 0 as the network adapter. So will this virtual machine also have access to internet? So if you are telling that your uh, virtual machine is having VMnet 0 as a network adapter, right? Because VMnet 0 is already bridged with your existing Wi-Fi or your Ethernet adapter, right? This virtual machine will also be getting access to internet. And then speaking about the IP addresses, what IP address should I use on this virtual machine? Which IP address should I use on this virtual machine? So here, when it comes to the virtual machine's IP address, right, it will have a IP address in the same segment as your physical computer. Say, for example, your physical computer, that is your laptop or your desktop, has a IP address something like say 192.168.0.9. Then your virtual machine also will get a IP address in the same segment, something like say 192.168.0.10 or 11 or 12 or something, right? Your virtual machine will also be getting a IP address in the same LAN segment as the physical computer, and your default gateway would be your router. So whatever router you have in your home network, right? So the IP address of this router will be the default gateway for this for this virtual machine also. Now let's say assuming your router's IP address is something like 192.168.0.1, your virtual machine also will have a default gateway IP address as 192.168.0.1. Is it clear what kind of IP address you will be getting on the virtual machine and what would be the default gateway for your VM? Okay. And the virtual machines, what I have shared, right? They are all configured to take IP address directly through DHCP, right? So if your physical computer is able to get IP address directly via DHCP, your virtual machine also will be getting IP address directly through DHCP. So you don't have to manually go to the settings on the virtual machine to do the IP address configurations and all that. Okay, so you don't have to manually do that. If your physical computer, your laptop or your desktop is getting IP address directly through DHCP from the router, your VM will also directly get IP address from the router's DHCP itself. Okay, is that clear? Guys, is everyone clear regarding the IP address and the VMnet adapter? Okay, so let me show you how do we configure this VMnet 0, right, to be a bridge to your existing network adapters. So for this, we'll have to go back to our VMware workstation. So if you guys already have VMware workstation installed, right, you can do it along with me when I'm explaining. So it will be easy for you to understand. And in case if any one of you do not have VMware workstation installed, right, try to follow the steps, right, after installing VMware workstation on your system. So on your VMware workstation, right, so on the VMware software, you can go to the edit menu, go to edit menu, and there you select the option virtual network editor, select the option virtual network editor. So virtual network editor is where you are going to define all your VMnet adapters and all in VMware software, right? So when you go to edit and say virtual network editor, as you see, it opens virtual network editor and shows you how many network adapters are available. But by default, virtual network editor will open in read-only mode. So by default, virtual network editor will be opening in read-only mode. You will not be able to make any changes to the network adapters on the system, right? So by default, it will be in the read-only mode. So what you have to do is, if you have to make any changes or you wanted to add some new network adapters or reconfigure the existing network adapters and all, right? You'll have to get read and write permission. To do that, to get the read and write permission, you'll see a button here called Change Settings in the virtual network editor, right? So at the bottom, you will be seeing this button, Change Settings. You can click on that. It will ask you to provide administrator permission on the system, right? You, you can provide that. It will restart virtual network editor with read and write options, right? It will restart your virtual network editor with the read and write options. So by default, when you install VMware Workstation on your computer, it will install some virtual networks, VM1, VM8, sometimes VMnet 0, right? In case you have not configured any of these network adapters earlier, right? In case you did not configure any of the network adapters earlier, the simple thing is remove all the networks, remove all the VMnet adapters that are available. So what all VMnet adapters you see there on the system, right? Delete them, right? And then you can click on apply. So it's like you're removing all the VMnet adapters which are created by default, right? So everything that is created by default, you're going to remove them. So delete everything and say apply. Then go to the next step, click on add network here. You'll see a button, add network. So click on it. So by default, the first adapter will be VMnet 0, right? So you have a total of 20 adapters that you can configure from VMnet 0 to VMnet 19. So VMnet 0 is the first adapter that's going to be given. So select VMnet 0 and say OK. Now, whenever you create a new network adapter on VMware, right, in the virtual network editor, whenever you are creating a new network adapter, by default, the network adapter will be configured as host only adapter. So by default, that network adapter will be configured as host only. Host only network adapter means you will only have communication between the virtual machine and the host. Host is nothing but your physical computer, right? Host is nothing but your physical computer, your laptop or your desktop, whatever you are using, right? So only communication between the virtual machine to the host and host to the virtual machine. That is host only adapter. And by default, whenever you create a new network adapter on the virtual network editor, this is the default mode, right? So this is the default mode. Whenever you are creating a network adapter, it will be created as a host only adapter. Now what you have to do is to enable internet access via VMnet 0, you say instead of host only, let this network adapter be as a bridge adapter. You'll have to change the behavior of this network adapter. You say instead of host only adapter, let it be a bridge adapter. So select the option bridge, and when you select the option bridge, you will be able to see the bridging options also, right? So by default, it will give you with an option called automatic bridging, right? In most cases, it will work properly without any issues, but uh, there were some instances where automatic bridging will create some conflicts, right? Especially when you have both Ethernet and Wi-Fi networks connected, right? So instead of running into this kind of conflicts and all, right? What I would say is the better option when you are creating a bridge adapter, be very specific and define to which adapter this VMnet 0 has to be connected. If you are connecting to internet through Wi-Fi on your system, in the bridge options, you select your Wi-Fi adapter. If you are connecting to internet through Wi-Fi on your computer, in the bridge options, you select it as your Wi-Fi adapter. If you are connecting to internet through your Ethernet, that is through your LAN, then you select your LAN network card. Right. If you are connecting to internet via Wi-Fi, you select the Wi-Fi card. If you are connecting to internet through LAN, you select the Ethernet card. So it depends on how your computer is connecting to internet. So in my case, I'm connecting to internet through Wi-Fi. So I'll be selecting the Wi-Fi card. So once you select it, right, now you will be able to see that your VMnet 0 is bridged to your Wi-Fi card, right? VMnet 0 is bridged with Wi-Fi card. Okay. Uh, Shazgar, any query?
None.
Okay. So once your card is bridged to the Wi-Fi adapter or Ethernet adapter based on how exactly you are using it, right? Then you can say apply and OK. Uh, yeah, Mr. Bright, if you have two Wi-Fi cards, then you will have to choose the Wi-Fi card which you are using to connect with internet. So if you are using maybe the internal Wi-Fi or you are using the external Wi-Fi, based on whatever you are using to connect with internet, you will have to choose that particular Wi-Fi card in the bridging option. Is that clear? Yeah. Okay, so that's how you are going to define your VMnet 0 adapter, right? So is everyone clear what is VMnet 0, why we are using VMnet 0, and how do we configure VMnet 0? Okay, so in our next modules, instead of VMnet 0, we will also be using few other adapters, right? But as of now, we will only need VMnet 0. So if we are all clear with what is VMnet 0, then things will become easy when we go with our further sessions where we'll have to use multiple network adapters for the firewalls and all those. So is everyone clear? Okay, so now going back to your virtual machine, right? So we have discussed with what is the network adapter and why I'm using this VMnet 0, right? And then for you to start with the virtual machine, right, you can directly click on power on the virtual machine button here. And here in the description, I have also given what is the user ID and what is the password for you to log in to this virtual machine, to the virtual machine, right? So the username is cybersec, password is also cybersec for the virtual machine, right? And when you try to start this virtual machine for the first time, it will ask you a question. Did you move the virtual machine or did you copy the virtual machine? Right. So when you start this virtual machine for the first time on your computer, it will ask you whether did you move the virtual machine or did you copy the virtual machine. Always select the option that you have copied it. So always select the option that I have copied it. Now the reason why uh, you will say that I have copied it is because this particular virtual machine has been created on my laptop, right? So all the settings of this virtual machine, the kind of drivers that this operating system has to use and all, they're all related to the hardware that's available on my system, right? So when you are trying to use the same virtual machine on your computer, maybe the hardware on your computer is different from what's there on my machine, right? So there's no guarantee that it would be the exact same kind of a hardware. So maybe the kind of drivers that are required, right, will also be different, right? So what you do is when you say I have copied it, it will try to re-verify, recheck if the hardware platform on which the VM has been created and the hardware platform on which the VM is now being run is same or not, right? If it is same, not an issue, but if it is different, it will try to reconfigure your virtual machine according to your computer's hardware so that you will not have any issues when you are running it. Okay, so always select the option I have copied it, and when you power on the machine, let it boot up, let the operating system boot up, right? And once your operating system boots up, it may ask you, again based on your system settings, it may ask you to either log out and log in, or it may ask you to restart your virtual machine. Nothing to do with the physical computer, right? So based on what sort of changes have happened on the virtual machine, right? When you select I copied it, your virtual machine or your Windows operating system, once you boot up the VM, might either ask you to log out and log in to finalize all the configuration changes and the setting changes, or in some cases, it will ask you to reboot your virtual machine. No need to reboot your physical computer. You'll only have to reboot your virtual machine, right? So is that clear? What are the steps you have to follow when you start the virtual machine for the first time? Guys, am I audible? Yeah, okay. So is that clear? When you start your virtual machine for the first time, what are the steps you have to follow? So select the option I have copied the virtual machine, and then if it is asking you to log out and log in, right, you can do that. Or if it is asking you to reboot your virtual machine, reboot your virtual machine once. So once it is done, right, you'll be able to work, right? And on these virtual machines, I have also made one additional configuration. I'll also show you what you can do is if you think like maybe the hardware configuration might be different and all, right? So what you can do is even before you power on the virtual machine, even before you start the virtual machine for the first time, you can right click on the virtual machine name. You can right click on the virtual machine name, go to the option snapshot, and go to the option snapshot, right? Snapshot manager, go to the snapshot manager. So there are some snapshots available, right? So what you can do is delete all the available snapshots, right? You can delete all the available snapshots. All you need to do is just select the snapshot and say delete, right? So that snapshot will be removed. Same way. So maybe you see one snapshot or two snapshots, whatever it is, right? Try to delete those snapshots, and then you try to start it for the first time. If maybe some drivers or something have to be reconfigured, let it do it, right? So once the drivers have been reconfigured, once you log out and log in, or maybe once you reboot your virtual machine, shut down the virtual machine, shut down the virtual machine again, come back to the main VMware workstation, right click on the virtual machine name, go to snapshot and say take snapshot or create snapshot based on what version of VMware you are using. Create a snapshot or take snapshot. Now, why we are using this snapshot option is when you have a snapshot created, right? What all changes happen to the system after creating the snapshot, all those changes will be lost the moment you shut down the virtual machine. Now, say for example, when you are working with footprinting tools or scanning tools, as I said, these footprinting tools and scanning tools, right, will not be a full version. You are working with a trial software. So when you are working with a trial version, they will always have some limitations on how long this particular tool is going to work, right? So there's always a limitation on how long the tool is going to work, right? So what you have to do is use it for the trial duration, right? Use it for the trial duration, and once the trial period expires, you'll have to remove the virtual machine. Now again, removing the virtual machine, again then going with unzip, adding the virtual machine to your VMware and all, is again going to take some time. So what you can do, if you have a snapshot, right, when you take a snapshot, you do all your practical, you do all the lab, you shut down the virtual machine, right? So all the changes that happen to the machine will be lost. So what all changes that have happened to the machine will be lost. So next time when you restart your virtual machine, it will be as if like this is a uh, new or fresh installed copy of Windows. Okay. So is it clear why we are using virtual machines? Guys, clear why we are using VM and why we take snapshots of the VM? So a snapshot will make sure that what all changes have happened on the VM, right, will be lost when you shut down the VM, right? So even if you have a tool which is only going to give you a trial version for say 2 days or 3 days, you don't have to worry about the trial duration, right? So you don't have to worry about the trial duration and all, right? Uh, Similar to deep freeze, yes, but deep freeze has some issues, right? So some of your operating system related files will be lost or corrupt when you are using deep freeze. But in case of the snapshots on your VMware, no such issues. You don't have to worry about file corruption or losing some files and all that. Okay, so is this clear, everyone? Why we are using the snapshots? Guys, am I audible? Okay, so no one is responding, so I just wanted to check if the link is okay or whether there is some issue with the audio or something. And when you start your virtual machine and you keep using it, right? As you all know, Windows 10 and Windows 11, there you don't have an option of permanently disabling updates, right? So as long as your computer is connected to internet, it will try to download and install updates in the background, right? So don't worry, right? Even if it says there are some updates pending and all, right? You can just shut down without installing any updates and all, right? Because even if you try to download and install all those updates, because of the snapshot, the moment you shut down the machine, all those changes are lost, right? And of course, as you also see here on the screen, it keeps on reminding you to uh, do some settings or do some changes and all, right? You can skip those, not an issue, right? And once you're so once your virtual machine starts, right? So as I've been using in all our sessions, right? On the D drive, you have your tools, right? So on the D drive of your virtual machine, you have the tools and all, right? So you'll be able to install the tools and do your practicals, right? So is it clear how you can start using your virtual machines for the lab practicals? Harish, you can also install it on Windows 10, not an issue. Okay. And regarding this VM, right? I've already sent the Google Drive link for you to download the VMs, right? Okay, so you can follow this particular procedure, what I have explained today, to set up your virtual lab environment and to start your labs. Right. Asghar, have you filled your details in the form which I gave you? So you'll have to fill the details, right? I'll share you the link of the form. I'll give you that. So you have to fill your details. Only then you'll be getting access to the drive where you can download all the virtual missions and all. Okay, so there is the link where you can fill in your details. Okay. So now coming back to our discussion related to the password cracking part, right? So yesterday we were discussing about what different techniques hackers are using to crack the passwords. So we were discussing about brute force attack, dictionary attack, rainbow tables, and all, right? So when you speak about this brute force dictionary and rainbow tables, right? So hackers can also use the same techniques not only to crack the password hash values of our user ID and passwords. Hackers can use the same rainbow tables or the dictionary attacks and all to crack different system accounts also. Right now, let's say for example, I have a FTP server. So let me show you. So on this mission, so on this mission 192.168.8.232, I have a FTP server running. So let me see if I can try to access it from my Windows 11 machine. So now as you can see, when I say try to connect to FTP on 192.168.8.232, it says that yes, you are connected, but it is also asking me what is the user ID. And if I provide the user ID, obviously the next step would be what is the password for this, right? But assuming a hacker does not know what is the password, hacker does not know what is the password of the FTP server, right? Now, trying to find out what is the username will be easy because as per our scenario, what we have taken yesterday, right? We are saying that hacker is in our network. Hacker is available locally in our network, right? So when hacker is available locally in our network, trying to find out what all user IDs are available on the FTP server is not a problem, right? So hacker knows which user ID is available, and hacker can also relate this particular user ID and see whether is this user account related to the administrator or not. So hacker can easily check that. But without knowing the password, as you all know, hacker will not be able to log in. So in that condition, once the hacker wants to crack the password, hacker can use the same dictionary attack or brute force attacks to crack the passwords. So let me show you what kind of tools can be used for cracking these passwords. So here I have two applications. One is a GUI based tool. The other is a command line application, right? So I'll show you both. Uh, so the application which gives you a GUI is something called Brutus, right? So there is application name. Now in this application Brutus, you have to give the IP address of the target system. So in our case, it is something like 192.168.8.232. So that's the IP address of the server. Then I can also choose what kind of a server is it. Is it FTP or is it HTTP? Is it a POP3 server or SMTP server, or what kind of a server it is? So I say that this is a FTP server, right? And then I can say uh, try to increase the timeout period, so that maybe for some reason if the server is busy or server is not responding immediately, your connection would not be terminated, right? Your connection would still be active for some time, right? Then I am also selecting the other option, try to stay connected for unlimited attempts. Now why do we need this option, try to stay connected for unlimited attempts? So in what scenario we may need this kind of option, try to stay connected for unlimited attempts? Do you guys recollect your password policy? You're applying some password policy on your Microsoft servers, on the user accounts and all. Do you remember? So what sort of restrictions are you giving in the password policy? So you say if there is a failed password attempt, right? Maybe some 3 passwords or 5 password attempts have been failed, then automatically that particular user account has to be blocked. Are you giving such password? Are you giving such password policies? After 3 or 5 failed password attempts, you say block the user account maybe for next 1 hour or next 12 hours or next 24 hours, right? Account lock or account lockout policy will be there. So if there is such a policy on the FTP server also, right? There is a policy on the FTP server which says after 5 failed password attempts, your account will be locked. Now, what happens after 5 passwords and I'm trying the 6th password? Assuming I'm not so lucky, in the first 5 attempts, my password is not cracked. When I try with the 6th password, what happens? Account will be locked and server will not accept login attempts to that particular account for some duration. It can be for half an hour or 1 hour. It depends on how the administrator has done the configuration for it. As a hacker, we may not be aware of that account lock or maybe lockout duration and all, right? So what we are doing with this option in the software is we say try to stay connected for unlimited attempts. Now this application will try to resend the user ID and the 6th password, resend the username and the 6th password after 10 minutes. try to see if the server is accepting it or not. If server is accepting the password after 10 minutes, server will give a response whether this password is correct or not. But let us say server is not accepting it. Server would reject it. Now, based on what response is given by the server, application will be able to identify if the server is responding or not for your new password attempt. But let's say if the server is responding, but the given password is wrong, it will continue with the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th combinations and all. But let us say the server is not responding. Then it will wait for another 10 minutes. Again, try with the 6th password. See if the server is responding or not. If server is responding, it's well and good. Server is not responding, wait for another 10 minutes. Try with the 6th password. So like this, your application will keep on trying multiple attempts, right? If your account has been locked for some duration, right? It will wait for 10 minutes, retry, 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 and all. Right? So is it clear why we are selecting the option try to stay connected for unlimited attempts? Okay, yeah. And then I say, I want to crack the password of a user account called Cybersec, but I do not know what is the password of it. Right. I know that there is a username called Cybersec, but I don't know what exactly is the password of it. So I give the known username. So I'm telling the application that I know there is a user account called Cybersec. I'm defining it. And then I say, I want to crack this password either using brute force attack. That's where you try to test all possible combinations, or try with word list. Word list is nothing but your password dictionary. You'll have a set of words, right? And then you try and see whether you'll be able to crack it or not. Or there is something else called combo list. Combo list is a combination of both dictionary attack and the password brute force. So first it will try with the password dictionary. If the password dictionary is not successful, then it will start cracking it with the brute force method. Right. So that's a combo attack. So in this case, let me say I want to go with a password word list. So I'm trying to crack this particular user account's password using a password dictionary. So once I select the word list as option, I can choose where exactly the password word is available. So I'm able to select the location. So you can define where exactly your password word is available, right? And then say start cracking it. Now this application will try to communicate with that FTP server, send the username as cybersec and password as the first word in the password dictionary, right? If server is accepting it, it's okay. If server is not accepting it, take the second word, take the third word, fourth, fifth, sixth. So it continues with all different words that are available in the password dictionary. And say if you are successful in cracking the password, right? Once you are able to crack the password, it shows you that for this username cybersec, this is the password that is correct. So it tells you what is the correct password if you are successful in cracking it. Is it clear, everyone? This particular method can be used even if hacker is somewhere on internet, right? Uh, because anyway, you are trying to give the IP address of the target, right? So even if hacker is somewhere on internet, you will be able to use this, not an issue. So guys, is everyone clear with this method? Yeah. Yes, in the words, you'll have to give a password dictionary, right? So this password dictionary is nothing but list of all different words that you think might be a correct password. Yeah, if you do not know what is the user account available there, then you also have an option. Instead of saying, I know the username, you can take up another notepad file, try to guess what could be the possible user account name, right? And use that notepad in the user file. You can do that. So what it does, if you have a notepad file with 10 user accounts, it will take the first username, test all the passwords. If it is not successful, take the second username, test all the passwords in the password word list. Not successful, take the third word, test all the passwords in the word list, and so on. Okay, so even if you do not know what is the user ID, you will be able to use this tool. Is it clear? Yeah. In the same way, like Brutus, there's another tool called Hydra, which is a command line application, right? So you don't have a GUI. So to access this Hydra application through command line, all you need to do is go to the folder where this Hydra application is available. So here on the top in the address bar, just type CMD, right? So it will directly open command prompt in that particular path, right? So you don't have to manually open command prompt and navigate to that particular location. It will directly open command prompt in that particular location, right? So once the command prompt is open in that particular location, you can give a command Hydra. So when you give a command Hydra, it shows you what exactly is the syntax, how you have to use this application. So it says the syntax is Hydra hyphen L, give the username, hyphen P, give the passwords dictionary text file, and then define what is the service and what is the password of that remote system, right? So it gives you with the options. So here, let me say, I'll just try to see other than FTP, what services are enabled. So Hydra is flexible compared to Brutus. You'll be able to go with multiple services. So multiple services can be cracked using Hydra. As you can see, it is giving you a list of all the supported services. Right? So instead of FTP, let me try to crack a different service now. So I say Hydra hyphen L. I use the username as cybersec hyphen P, the passwords word file. So there's a passwords.txt file which is available in the same folder as your Hydra application. So passwords folder is available here, right? And now I want to crack remote desktop protocol, or say RDP protocol of this 192.168.8.232. So on the same IP address, earlier we were trying to crack the FTP. Now along with FTP, remote desktop is also available on the remote system, right? So now I'm trying to crack the remote desktop password, right, or the RDP password using this dictionary method and Hydra application. So once you give the command, you can start the attack. So it says it's trying to crack the password on 3389 port. So as you know, 3389 is a port that we use for remote desktop connections. So application would take some time based on various factors like how many passwords have to be tested, and also how fast is the remote server or the remote machine responding to your request, right? And if you are able to find a correct password, it tells you that you are able to crack the password. So you are trying to crack RDP or remote desktop protocol on this IP 192.168.8.232, and it says the username is cybersec and the password is also cybersec. Okay, so if it finds the password, it tells you that for this particular user ID, this is the password found. So this is how a hacker can try to use brute force or dictionary attacks, right, to crack the passwords. So is it clear, everyone? So not only to crack the hash values that are available on the SAM file, this brute force and dictionary attack methods can be used to crack the login passwords of various other services also. When you speak about this password dictionaries, right, you have some tools which can be used to create password dictionaries, or you can also directly download these password dictionaries from various websites and all, right, which are available on internet. Okay, and also when you speak about tools which are dependent on the password dictionaries, when you are downloading them, right, they also come with their own password dictionary files. But as I said, you have an option, you can also download password dictionaries and all from internet. Yeah. So now let's say hacker has physical access to our computer. We were discussing about how hacker can bypass our password, how hacker can obtain our hash values and then crack the passwords. Then we have now seen how hackers can use the same brute force or the password dictionary methods to crack the passwords of other systems or other servers in our network, right? But let us say, assuming hacker does not have physical access to our computer. Hacker does not have direct physical access to our computer, right? So if hacker does not have physical access to our computer, right, uh, will the hacker be able to use any of these tools what we have discussed? So if hacker does not have physical access to the system, hacker cannot use this password bypassing tools or something, right? So in such condition, hacker would go with a different approach, right? Hacker will be going on with a different approach to crack the passwords, right? Where hacker will try to capture the traffic between the admin's computer or maybe between the user's computer and the target. So in short, hacker tries to capture the traffic between two different systems to see what is the user ID and the password, right? So what exactly is that procedure and all, we'll discuss that in the next session tomorrow. So in the meanwhile, I would request you all, who all has downloaded the virtual missions, to try uh, starting up these virtual missions on your system, right? And for those guys who have not got it, right, I'll just check the list and I'll try to forward the VMs, so you can also try to download those virtual missions. So download the VMs, try to start them, right? And when you're starting the virtual mission, if you find any difficulty in that, please let me know so that I'll be able to help you to sort it out, right? So maybe if you're finding some difficulty, or if you see some error message or something, try to give me a snapshot of the error message also. So that will be really easy for me to see what is the problem and then help you out with that. Okay, so in the next session we will discuss the other technique where hacker tries to capture the traffic between multiple systems to steal the passwords. Is that clear, everyone? Yeah. So with this, I'll be ending the session for today. Thank you all.